One of the muscles that pretty much everyone wishes was bigger on them is the shoulder. They quite literally round out an aesthetic V-frame physique, but if you're struggling to grow your shoulders, or you just want to know how to optimize across the 3 different muscle groups in the shoulders, then make sure you're avoiding these 3 worst shoulder exercises and do these alternatives instead. Now first off, let me explain the 3 muscles that encompass the shoulder. First, we have the front delts, which is probably gonna be the most overdeveloped head of the shoulders for most individuals because the front delts are involved in most pressing motions. Now the second head is gonna be the side delts. Now for most individuals, this is gonna be a big area of opportunity. A bigger side delt generally means a broader looking V-frame from the front. And last but not least, we have the rear delts, which is going to be the most underdeveloped muscle for most individuals that do not lift. Now, the rear delts are also going to be a big area of opportunity because they make these shoulders look more well-rounded from the side. So now that we understand the 3 heads of the shoulders, let's get to the first exercise to avoid. Now, the first worst exercise, in my humble opinion, is going to be a dumbbell front raise, or honestly, any other front delt isolation movement for that matter. Now, in this case, it's not necessarily the exercise that's the problem. The dumbbell front raise is actually a pretty sound exercise. However, the big thing is if you're doing an isolation front delt exercise on top of already shoulder pressing, and let's say you also do 2 different chest presses per week, I probably would say it's a little bit overkill to also add a front delt isolation movement. Now, if that didn't apply to you, then sure, you definitely can include front raises in your routine, but you have to think that in your total workout routine, there's a limited amount of spots available. So ultimately, exercise choice matters a lot. Because after all, the more exercise you include in one workout, the more fatigue you ultimately incur, which then will impact your performance as well as your ability to recover, which then will impact your gains. For example, imagine adding another squat at the end of your leg day. How would you feel? Now obviously the front delts are a smaller muscle group than the quads ultimately, but they are involved in pretty much every single press that you do. Meaning, adding a seemingly harmless set of front raises can potentially impact your bench press, incline dumbbell bench press throughout the week. Or at the very least, it might again just be junk volume, so you're just wasting your time. In my opinion, instead of doing a front delt isolation exercise, you're better off doing a side or rear delt focus exercise, such as a dumbbell L raise. Now, if I had to choose between the 2, I'd probably opt for training the side delts over the rear delts, just because with the rear delts, they are involved in other back exercises as well, but pretty much in the case of the side delt, you have a shoulder press as well as some sort of lateral raise. But ultimately, side or rear delt, either is fine because a lot of people struggle with feeling their rear delts anyway, so they probably can benefit from additional volume. Also, real quick, I had to mention that my protein is having a massive sale right now. Literally everything is 40% off if you use code TYLRPath. I personally recommend Clearway because it literally has the best macros in any protein powder I've ever seen, but creatine monohydrate is also a really cheap option from them. Everything's pretty much good there, but if you're interested in stocking up, definitely check the link in the description and use code TYLRPath. Now, the second worst exercise, a lot of you guys are gonna hate me for this, is gonna be the regular standing dumbbell L raise. Now, this isn't an awful exercise by any means, but I think we can do a lot better. So for one thing, the dumbbell L raise has what's known as an ascending resistance profile, meaning it is hardest at the top over here when the side delts are most shortened, and contrary to that, there's pretty much no resistance down here. And with all the evidence showing that hypertrophy is generally gonna be better for muscles that are trained in the longer lengths, then choosing an exercise that has no tension in the lengthened position is probably not the best idea. But the biggest gripe I have with this exercise is actually the stability of the movement. Now, a lot of people don't think of the dumbbell L raise as an unstable exercise, but let me ask you, when you stop a set of dumbbell L raises, are you stopping because your side delts are actually fatigued, or is it that you can't no longer maintain good form? Meaning, for one thing, are you able to keep the traps out of the movement? But secondly, are you keeping your hands lower than your elbows at all times? Overall, for a tricky exercise like the dumbbell L raise, where pretty much everyone struggles with not involving other muscle groups when they're doing the exercise, if you're able to choose a more stable variation, I probably would go with that. So instead, do the line cable L raise or a bent arm machine L raise. Both variations are gonna be more lengthened focused and have an overall or even resistance profile where you actually get tension in this more bottom position. But more importantly, it's also way more stable than the dumbbell L raise. It allows you to actually grind through that last rep as you approach failure without running into the issue of not being able to maintain good form. Now, I gave 2 options because ultimately I know that a lot of people out there aren't gonna do the line cable L raise because of social embarrassment, but honestly, like, really, who the cares? If you do it with cuffs or you use the D handles as a cuff, even better. Now, the third worst exercise that you shouldn't do for the purpose of trying to grow, in this case, the rear delts, is gonna be the humble face pull. Now, in my opinion, now some people consider the face pull a rear delt exercise, but I ultimately consider it more of a functional exercise training external rotation. What does that mean? What I mean is a lot of PTs recommend the face pull for those that have a lot of shoulder pain or have this like chronic bad posture that's all slouched like this, because the act of external rotation is essentially the opposite to internal rotation, which is, again, many times the culprit of having bad posture like this. Which is a good thing, by the way. If you're doing the face pulls for the act of external rotation and training it as more of like a rehab exercise, that's good. But this also means that aside from your rear delts, you're also involving muscles of the trap, the rotator cuff, so it's not the best rear delt biasing exercise. Now you might be thinking, well, what if I do it the Sam Sulek way where I'm actually doing a rear delt biasing face pull? Now, yeah, that's gonna involve more of the rear delts than before, but if you're trying to do a rear delt isolation exercise, why do the face pull, which has usually a worse grip? Range of motion is a little bit limited because you're limited to using one rope. Enter the high to low cable rear delt fly. Now, this is gonna be a bilateral movement, meaning each limb is gonna be responsible for its own weight. And compared to the face pull, you're gonna have a lot more freedom of motion. Now, with the rear delts, a lot of people find that it's very hard to actually like feel the rear delts. A lot of people struggle with that. So you're gonna notice that with this exercise, in my opinion, it has been the one exercise that has allowed me to actually feel my rear delts. And how it's gonna go is, at first, you're not really gonna feel anything, but if you keep continuing your set, as you approach failure, all of a sudden you're gonna hit a wall and you're gonna be like, all right, that's what feeling my rear delts actually feels like. With the high to low rear delt fly, you can also do it unilaterally. So you can take one arm and now you really can manipulate the angle of your body. If you pivot more this way, it's gonna be more of a length and focus rear delt exercise. If you face straight, it's gonna be a little bit more mid-range focus, where this is gonna be the hardest part. But ultimately, this is a better exercise, in my opinion, than the face pull, because you can get the rear delts through a really good range of motion. And for a lot of people that struggle to feel the rear delts, this is gonna be the exercise you wanna do. And those were the 3 worst exercises that you should be avoiding if you're trying to maximize growth in your overall shoulders. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please leave a like. It's the easiest way to support my page. It's completely free. Perhaps check out my protein. Use code TylerPath if you're looking to stock up on some good protein powder and get 40% off. With that said, hit subscribe to Level Up Your Physique. Hit the bell notification and get these videos coming hot. Sorry to that one person that hit shoulders today but didn't hit the bell notification and ended up wasting their time doing face pulls thinking it's a good rear delt exercise. I'll see y'all in the next one. Don't be that guy. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.